Welcome to the podcast, guys. Today I'm joined with
Spowage.
And today we'll be speaking about themes such as longevity, fitness, mortality and fatherhood, so I hope you guys are all interested. Opening question: what was the start of your fitness journey? I know, I'm not trying to speak for you, I know you started climbing at around 16, 17 years old, but how's the transition been as you've grown older?
Well, it's a great question. One thing that I don't talk about a great deal was but was pivotal in my sort of fitness journey, as you call it, was that I had cancer when I was in my mid-20s. So I partied quite hard for a lot of years. So used to drink a lot, used to smoke a lot, used to go out clubbing a lot, and got sick in my 20s, had chemo, had sort of like that feeling of, possibly this is the end, maybe I'm going to die. That definitely led to me sort of cutting back smoking to zero. Didn't really make me stop drinking and take up fitness. I improved my eating quite consciously. And then I suppose the fitness just kind of crept in because I knew I needed to do it. I knew it would be a good thing. And then, as you said, climbing was a thing for me earlier on. As a teenager, I went climbing with my brother. Ended up going climbing with some guys from work. Had a couple of attempts at running. I remember running up and down Hayden Road in Sherwood, doing like a mile run. I think that was the first time I had really tried running. Did a little bit of couch to 5k, and it probably since turning maybe 35 towards 40, that's when I really kicked into another gear. And I suppose there was a period where I ended up wanting to do exercise more than I wanted to do partying, and that kind of ended up being a turning point, because that meant that people who were into partying were people who I hung out with less, and people who were into exercise were people that I hung out with more. And it was sort of like the same sort of thing for me. So people would say, I'm doing this run, do you want to do this run? And I'd be like, yeah. And it was the same as it had been when I was younger, with someone saying, I'm going to this rave. I'd be saying, yeah, all right. And it just became a thing of, like the session we've done this morning. I did that first because Jarvis said, whilst he's doing my hair, why don't you come and do one of these? I'm like, yeah, I'm into exercise. I'll do that. I'll give that a go.
That's a very big point, because I didn't know the fact beforehand about the illness. But in terms of the shift from the fitness, the climbing, and then obviously the cancer, and then coming off that and getting older and thinking about your fitness. I know the first change was consciously eating, but was there ever really a switching point where you thought, and there was definitely that transition between the party lifestyle to the fitness lifestyle? Because that shift can be quite hard for a lot of people, because a lot of people, especially as you said, if you transition from the partying group to the fitness group, I feel like a lot of people have a lot of friction because they feel like they'll either be isolated or they don't know. Because I feel like there's a lot of, I wouldn't say hidden judgment, I'd just say judgment, because I feel like sometimes you can make people feel maybe bad about their habits.
Do you know what? It definitely is true. I think you can become a snob of sorts, can't you? So you make a personal choice to start rejecting partying and being hungover, and then you sort of project that onto other people, and you sort of in your head are saying, oh, I don't understand, I don't get why they still do that. And so you sort of, I think it's important to recognise that, well, that's their choice for now, that was your choice back when you were doing that, they might change just as you have. But also you asked about like what's it like switching from a partying, boozing lifestyle to an exercise lifestyle, and I think actually it's been over many years for me, and I certainly can say about both alcohol and smoking cigarettes that for me making a switch and saying I'm gonna not smoke was very hard, whereas saying I'm not going to smoke today was always easier. And I suppose it if I'm going to like recommend something to anyone, it's like don't think because you've had one cigarette on a Friday night that means you are a smoker again. You've got to sort of take every positive step as a positive step, and like I do get that some people need to go completely off alcohol to avoid it, and I can get how it grabs people and pulls them in. But for me, I feel fortunate that I can say, I don't smoke. I'm not a smoker. I haven't had a cigarette for at least, 2, 3, 5 years. But if I did have a cigarette, I wouldn't punish myself about it. And I'd sit here today saying, probably will have a puff on a fag again before I die. That, in a way, sort of normalised it for me. I haven't missed out on anything. I just take a daily choice not to do something. And so, I think it's important not to characterise yourself or other people by the things that they do day to day on those days. Everyone's got the capacity in them to drink too much, to go for a run. It's choices day by day, isn't it?
Yeah. I think you made a good point about the cigarette philosophy that you had in terms of I won't have a cigarette today instead of I'm never going to have a cigarette again, because I feel like speaking to people about fitness and about a lifestyle change, people think of two ends of the spectrum. They either think doing nothing at all or running a marathon with no training kind of thing, like a David Goggins-esque kind of work ethic. And I feel like a lot of people put up this mental barrier or mental wall that stops them from doing anything.
Barrier is the word.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a barrier to entry. It makes physical activity look difficult.
Yeah.
When in fact physical activity is easy. I think one of the great I mentioned Couch to 5K. That is genuinely a terrific thing because of the way that it gets people on that journey.
Yeah.
Very nicely and very, very steadily. But yeah, you are right. It doesn't help with the way that things are often portrayed as the two extreme ends of a spectrum, of which all of it's normal.
Because that's really all you see. Because most of the things that are highlighted in the media, social media, mainstream TV shows, you'll see the ripped, set it up to his mind athlete lifting 600 pounds for 10 reps, and you'll think that's completely different to me, and then it will flash back to you, and you'll be in the pub with a pack of cigarettes and a pint, and you'll think that's just so far ahead of me, that could never be me. You kind of give yourself this identity of, I wouldn't say not being worth enough, but you feel like that idea is so far-fetched from your current position that you won't even try. But I speak to a lot of people, some of the older generation, and I feel like they've kind of disassociated their lifestyle so far from fitness that they won't even try anything.
That is a very interesting phenomenon. I know people who've consciously said, well, I've reached a certain age now, and I now define myself as middle-aged, and in my middle age I will not be doing exercise, and they take that choice. Another interesting sort of related point, we were talking earlier before we started recording about aspirations and about university. I was talking to Laura, my wife, about how we perceived physical activity when we were younger. So this would be in the 1990s, and it was the same in many ways for us as those educational aspirations. It didn't look like it was for us. it looked like it was an elitist thing. You know, we couldn't, neither of us could have really imagined, you know, being sporty. It was almost as though our destiny by default seemed to be that our leisure time would be in the pub with that packet of cigarettes, or, you know, out at the club, you know, ditto, sort of drinking and smoking. So it's really interesting how you are a function, certainly when you're younger, of the society around you. And it's a great thing these days, I think, that there are various channels through which you can see all of those other things. But again, as you've said, sometimes when that gradient or differential between where you're at and what's portrayed can be so great, then it's difficult to cover that gap.
Yeah, I think just on a daily basis, just small things like increasing your step count by maybe even 1,000 steps. You don't even have to do 10,000. That's not recommended, but that doesn't have to be the goal from the start. If you're not moving at all and just lying around in your bed all day, bad habits, smoking, drinking, that doesn't mean you have to do a complete lifestyle switch, because I feel like longevity wise, it's not. I feel like people get this wrong with these slimming schools and these weight loss 12-week transformations, that they think it's a 12-week shred for their holiday and then they're done. And I think that's a wrong philosophy to have with it, because I think you need to realise I feel like people know, but they don't embrace how much exercise can change your life, and in terms of the benefits that you can have for you. But when people go to these schools and they think, yeah, it's a 12-week thing, I'll lose 10 pounds or whatever. I've seen so many friends, relatives go through these types of things, but it doesn't make sense to me, because they know what they want to achieve and they can definitely achieve that through fitness, but they have to kind of pack it into a very small time scale.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that makes it hard, which then makes it not feel like it's part of your normal life. Again, yeah. This is about normal, sustainable lifestyle, isn't it? So if you kind of take someone out of their sedentary lifestyle and place them into a boot camp type scenario for a period of weeks, it sort of stands to reason that when that period of weeks is at an end, they'll return to their sedentary lifestyle.
Yeah.
Whereas if what that individual chooses to do is, you know, start doing an extra 1,000 steps a day, then that is dead easy. You know, it's 10 minutes. It will be sustainable for them, and that will, you know, the point is, life is quite long, and actually you've got decades within which you can change from the sedentary lifestyle to an active lifestyle. And there's tons and tons of examples of people who've become active in later life, or become, you know, perhaps not elite athletes, but there are almost certainly people who've run their fastest marathon in their 60s, you know, or, you know, lifted their heaviest weight in their 60s. You know, it's kind of, and again, I hate myself for immediately talking about marathons and lifting weights. There are plenty of people who've just engaged with a healthier lifestyle later in life and over several years, and it doesn't have to be this shocking transformation where you go, oh, I need to ditch all of those friends, I can never go to my local boozer again. You know, it doesn't have to be like that. You can
doesn't have to be night and day difference.
Exactly. It can still be, you know, a normal life where you still have a birthday party, you know, still go away on a holiday and
I think
drink sangria by the pool.
One thing I was speaking to my mum about last night was it's quite a harsh way to present things, but I was speaking to my mum about fitness, in fact, not about her fitness journey, but just in general, and she was saying, well, for some people it's quite difficult because life gets in the way, and I understand that point, but I feel like because it sounds harsh me saying this, but I feel like, when is life ever not gonna get in the way? I feel like at some point there needs to be a form of sacrifice in terms of what are you going to leave behind for high quality of life and fitness? It's quite a harsh thing. I don't know, it seems like I'm coming from a kind of vicious place when I'm saying this. Hopefully it doesn't sound that way. It sounds this way when I'm speaking it, but I feel like that you can never wait for the perfect time to I'm going to start on Monday, and then the Monday comes, and then you had a drink on Sunday night, so actually no, I'm gonna go on Tuesday.
I think there's a couple of things there. I think one thing is that if you are a carer of any kind, whether you're a parent or caring for elderly people, that can be such all-consuming work that you probably have a surprisingly limited choice about how you spend your leisure time. So I think there is that. There are periods in people's life where they've got caring responsibilities that suck up far more time than you might imagine. But on the other hand, I think you are right in general. For most people, there are minor adjustments to make to how you allocate the 24 hours that we all get in our day that will benefit you health wise. I think one of the classics that I talk to loads and loads of people about, you see someone at work or one of your friends and they look thinner, and you say, how have you achieved this? And they say, I've just stopped drinking alcohol. It takes no extra time. And literally all it is when you do your supermarket shop, you don't buy the booze.
Yeah.
You buy some Diet Coke or some fizzy drink that isn't alcohol, and you drink that instead.
Yeah.
And the weight falls off. That's a 0 times 0 effort lifestyle change. You just have to say, that's not a treat. I don't need that. I'm going to drop it. And alcohol's massively calorific, so the weight falls off.
I feel like with alcohol, it's such a... I personally don't drink very often. I don't know too much about your drinking habits, but in terms of, I feel like especially in the UK, especially my age being 19, a lot of the social activity is built around the idea of alcohol being involved.
Absolutely.
Let's meet up and drink. Let's party, drink. Of course, the party will be better with alcohol, but everything is built around it. Let's meet up, go for food, and then we'll get cocktails after, or meet up, let's just have a chat and then go to the pub. There's always a connection, or it always ends with alcohol somehow. And I feel like if you take that out, you can sometimes limit your opportunity for social interaction, but also it comes down to the snobbery kind of feeling that you might get, because if everyone's out having a drink, going to the pub, and you're there and you ask for a lemonade and they go, yeah, why are you not drinking? And you just go, oh yeah, I'm not going to have one tonight.
Yeah, there's loads of stuff there.
You feel a bit of a shift in the vibration in the mood in terms of people look at you like, oh, what?
It's a great thing that there are lots of alcohol-free things that look like alcohol, because it is easier to integrate in a social situation where other people are drinking if you don't announce that you're not drinking. It's way, way easier. If you don't announce it, that people generally don't notice, and you can have, for the vast portion of the evening until everyone else is drunk and repeating themselves, you can have just as good an evening, and then the following day you haven't got a hangover, you don't feel ill. I think this is one of the things that tipped it for me. So my drinking was probably, if I'd continued drinking like I used to, it would have made me ill. It probably wasn't really out of control drinking. I was never someone who would drink on my own. I wouldn't wake up and I might drink on my own a bit, but I wouldn't wake up and get drunk. And I always had terrible hangovers, which were so great for putting you off drinking again. But yeah, it's the hangovers for me that really started to tip the balance, because you realise you've got a certain number of days on this earth, and you think, why would I waste one of those days incapacitated, you know, rolling around with a head that's feeling like it's been sawn in half, you know, just looking forward to that point at 9 p.m. when your head doesn't feel like it's been sawn in half and you can have a piece of really terrible for you food, you know, and go to sleep. You just think, why would I go through that experience? That is not an experience that you would sign up for.
I think that's one of the big things with alcohol. It's definitely not the only thing, but it's that it leaks into your other days. You can drink on Saturday night. Maybe you go out at maybe 6 o'clock, maybe later. You'll drink all the way through that Saturday night. You'll go to bed at maybe 4 a.m, 5 a.m. But then the whole day is consumed by alcohol. You can't train. You can't really function properly in terms of brain capacity. You're not in the greatest mood all day.
No.
It just lingers about.
No, you can be really paranoid. You can be really depressed. It's definitely a toxic situation that you can find yourself in with that. And I probably have wasted too many of my days in that situation. For some, you know, some fun nights out on occasion that you know I wouldn't have been in and wouldn't have been part of if I hadn't gone out. And like you said, the culture was alcohol fueled, so it just seems like it couldn't have happened that I'd have been out having those conversations, having that fun without alcohol.
I think a podcast host, Chris Williamson of Modern Wisdom, talking about his he did an extended period of time of sobriety. I think it was 300 days, 500 days or 900 days, I can't remember. It might not even be that, but he was speaking about it's wrong to deny that alcohol can give you a good night and you will have a fun time on alcohol, but it's also wrong to deny that going into that state of being drunk and taking all these drinks in, spending all this excess money on overpriced drinks in a bar that you don't even like, listening to music that you're not interested in, is that even worth it? And there's the sacrifice that you're willing to make. Of course, it's not if you take it, you're a terrible person, you've ruined your fitness journey that we were speaking about earlier. Don't ever expect yourself to never pick up a cigarette again or never go to your local boozer kind of thing. But it just depends what you want. I feel like a lot of the time, the way that I kind of viewed clubbing is because I've been clubbing sober and I've been clubbing drunk, and I feel like, once again, Chris Williamson said, if the only time that you can enjoy the activity that you're doing is when you're under the influence, then you need to find new activities to do. And if the only time that you can enjoy or be around your friends is when you're damaging your health and you need new and better friends.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's definitely true. I can remember being in probably in Rock City in Nottingham, and probably about your age. You know, we'd go to Rock City on a Thursday night and on a Saturday night, and I can remember being in there, being sort of at that point of drunkenness where it's supposedly like the peak of the evening, and just thinking, I'm bored.
Yeah.
And I've had enough of doing this.
Yeah.
And yet you kind of look around and go, yeah, but this is it, man.
Yeah.
You know, the tunes are on, everyone's here, everyone's got beers, everyone's dancing, and I remember thinking, it's really not stimulating me.
Yeah.
You know, intellectually. There's no conversation to be had because it's too freaking loud. You know, I've heard this song before. I know all these lot. I've tried that beer. Like, it's I think anything that turns into a sort of treadmill-like operation.
Yeah.
Where
you're just kind of waiting for the lights to come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to say you'd done it.
Yeah, and it's a funny thing, I think, but it certainly was for me, being a young person. I couldn't have. It's a ridiculous thing to say, but there was me and a number of good friends, and we'd go out, and it was hard for me to think, well, I won't go and do that. I didn't have an alternate social scene or scene at all to do. Those were all of the people that I knew who were my age, and that was all of the thing that we did.
Yeah. I feel like that's the thing as well that we were speaking about in terms of like switching from the fitness or the alcohol from the fitness kind of switch, is that if you don't find yourself with a social circle, but you feel this urge of changing your lifestyle, but then, you feel like, what, I'm tired of this, I'm tired of going to the club each week and, living for the weekend kind of lifestyle. If you're the only one who's doing that, then you can definitely feel put off by the fact that you're going to spend a lot of time doing what you enjoy, but doing it alone.
Yeah.
And that's a big barrier for a lot of people, especially, I can imagine that for the older generation as well. That
I think we all like to do stuff with other people. Well, not everything, but I think, I think it's particularly for younger people. We were talking earlier off air about university. There's a massive thing, I think, about the size of your social circle when you are young, and after you've left that first institution of school and ended up like either without an institution or moving to a new institution like university, you can just find yourself with a small social circle.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I can remember, Harry, being what age would I have been? Probably 18, maybe 19. And there was probably me and about 5 dudes, and we'd go to the pub like most nights of the week, have 4 pints, and then go to Rock City on a Thursday, go to Rock City on a Friday. I can remember thinking, oh my God, we don't know any girls. And thinking, oh, this is a nightmare. we don't know any girls. And thinking, oh, well, how are we going to ever meet any girls? How's this going to happen?
Yeah.
Like, and even thinking deeply about it, you're just going, well, what are we going to do? We're going to have to find another. Do any of us have any sisters? Like, what's the way out of this pickle that we find ourselves in? And of course, for a while that was true, and then, you sort of meet some other people. Some of those other people know some girls, someone who's an acquaintance, and throughout my life, my social circle has just expanded and expanded and expanded in a wonderful way that means that I can still recognise that fear that the younger me had of, I'm not going to meet. Then it was all about girls, but you could translate it to people who were into the thing that I'm into. People who want to go for a run with me, people who want to go for a walk with me, people who want to go cinema, people who want to do stuff that isn't that thing. People who want to do something that isn't, going to the pub, or that isn't going fishing, whatever it is. And I think as you get older, your social circle, just if you open up to it, can expand. You find everyone, surprisingly, is willing to be friends, basically, and that's just a remarkable and wonderful thing.
I think that's a good thing to hear, especially people of my age, in terms of things getting better, because there's a very pessimistic mindset that's going on, which is kind of hard not to have, being a boy my age. And because you can just see from statistics alone, people were feeling more isolated. I think it's a third of men are either virgins or haven't had any sexual interaction over the past year, and that's going up and up and up. And in terms of people and boys interacting with girls, that's separating. You find that a lot just nowadays with boys my age, even younger, and you're finding a lot of people kind of giving up already. And it's a hard thing. And just from being online, there's forums dedicated to it, there's groups, there's internet groups, there's so many people. And I realised this the other day, there's a big attitude, and there's a huge, I wouldn't say it's masturbatory, but I'd say there's a huge interest in self-improvement and changing and kind of moulding yourself into a better person, which I have nothing against, but it's, people are always looking for the thing that will give them that acceptance from, I think what it comes down to is just from girls, or whatever you're into, but they're looking for this one thing that will finally give them this opportunity to be with, the opposite sex.
It's that it was always like that. It really was. I suppose. I've had a lot of thoughts about that over my time. I think one of the things is it does benefit you to recognise, like, that it's a particular life stage, and that you shouldn't in effect cast yourself as that character and say I'm now this character for the rest of my life. I think that's very, very important, and that some of what happens over the next 5 years of your life as you go from being a 19-year-old to a 24-year-old will be stuff where you are growing into yourself and becoming more yourself. I think in terms of attractiveness to women, I think me and my friend Ricky used to talk about this as there is a thing where if you've sorted yourself, and it doesn't really matter how that is, it's got to be you being sorted, whether it's and it doesn't have to be fully sorted, but like a bit resolved, a bit of self-knowledge, you know what you're into and that's what you do, then that sort of resolved person is a much more attractive person to the opposite sex, and is someone who isn't needy, isn't like greedy, and it's just and also that sort of resolving yourself makes you end up looking like who you are and behaving like who you are, and that will naturally attract the right people.
Yeah.
Because on the other side of the barrier, as it were, there's all of the girls who are your age.
Yeah.
Who look like they're having a totally different time of it.
Yeah.
But they're actually having a mirror image time of it.
Do you think?
I know for a fact, but it from your perspective, it looks and feels entirely different, right? Let me tell you how I think it is from your perspective, because I think I know, because I think I was there once. I think that from the perspective of the male 19-year-old, all of the girls look like they're, not all of them, but a lot of them look like they could have their pick of the boys if they just asked, right? They look hot, they look beautiful, they're clever, they know what they want out of life. I think that's how the girls look to the boys. And
you think the girls think that the boys have things figured out? Because I think just from personal experience, this might be quite of a black pill way of looking at things, and I think all you need to do, because I think there's a hierarchy, right? I think there's a slight weird hierarchy in terms of, I don't know how appropriate this will sound, right? But I think you've got, I think you've got a few select group of boys at the top, right? You've got the athletes, you've got the football. I don't know if I believe this completely, and the thing that I will say just before I say this is that whatever I say, or whatever I might deem is true, I won't let that be a detriment to my daily activity and progression. Because even if it's true and there's some nihilism, there's a huge black pill trend that's coming through at the minute where there's these philosophies, right? You know, have you ever seen the Matrix?
Yeah.
Where you've got the blue pill, you've got a red pill. There's this huge manosphere, which does sound very, I don't know, because it's so corny to speak about to someone who's like, who's not like, I don't know, I could say chronically online. I wouldn't say I'm chronically online compared to most people, but I've definitely spent a lot of time just looking at things. But you've got this blue pill, which is nothing, which is basically no view on anything in terms of like just normal life. And then you've got this red pill view, which is kind of build a business, get all your money, get the Lambo, get your charisma, get your game up, get your fitness up, get in the gym, but that's what you need to do, right? And that's so become this kind of baller businessman, Jordan Belfort-esque kind of person, right? And then you've got this black pill community, which is, it's all genetic. If you don't have the right genetics, it sounds very...
Just give up.
Basically. But the thing is, people will say, no, you've got that wrong, that might not be the right thing. But that is, a lot of it is very pessimistic, negative views on the things. If you're not... And I think it would be wrong to say those things don't have an effect, because that would be ignorant. To say that someone who's got a perfectly chiseled jawline, who's 6'6", who has great genetic markers, is going to have an advantage over the 5'4", no chin man. I think like that's gonna there's definitely going to be a huge difference in their dating market options. But I think letting that be a huge detriment and thinking, yeah, I'm not going to do anything now, I think that's a very slow death. Because
let me give you some surprises on that front. So a thing that happened to me, and it's going to sound big-headed to say it on this, but I'm old enough not to give a monkeys. A thing that's happened to me a couple of times, and I count myself as a funny-looking dude, so I don't rank highly in the appearance stakes, but I am funny, believe it or not. And on a couple of occasions, genuinely, I've had, been in sort of forced environments, like work environments and I think just work environments, where it's turned out that the hot girl has actually been into me. And I think I carried from school with me the same sort of idea that you're seeing on the internet of, the particular dudes, there being a sort of ranking. And there's a realisation which is actually what women are attracted to is men who are grounded and men who are funny. And men who are sort of, just grounded and funny is probably mostly it, really. And in terms of the red pill thing, I do subscribe to the fact that you have got to go out and do your thing.
Yeah, kind of make a name for yourself.
Not
make a name for yourself in terms of like building up a public brand, but like
embody your name. Go and be you. Like do your life independently. Be you. And I think again that is what I mean by grounded. I think that is an attractive thing.
Yeah.
To be not all like wobbly and indeterminate and I don't know, but to be, this is me, I'm into these things, I do these things, my life's good, my life's happy, I've got my own flat, whatever. I think that is, because it's stable, clear, and if it comes with a good sense of humour, I think that is an attractive package. And I don't particularly like Lamborghinis.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. Get the supercars. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, of course.
I think.
Of course, but look, here's the thing. Like you will. There's a lot of. I mean, dating's a terrific topic. There's a TED talk that I'll recommend now by a lady who decides that she wants a very specific love match, and she goes through on the TED talk. I think it's a TED talk. The work that she does, and the mathematics that she does to find the guy, and she calculates how many guys will fit her very peculiar profile that she's after.
It's like 0.2% or something.
It's a really, really tiny number. You know, there's like 2 of them in New York City or something.
That's a big trend as well on social media, funnily enough, where they're going and they're doing public interviews, and you can do like find your match percentage or something like that.
Well, this is she probably you know, people have probably watched that TED talk and probably sort of learned from it and started it. But the thing is, that whole thing, you know, forget it as an industry, think of it as a thing, you know, local to you, your life. It's all about matching.
Yeah.
And unless you manifest the person that you really are, you know, heart and soul and head in line, embodied, you know, this is the true me, you won't get someone who suits you. You'll get someone who's looking for the person that you're portraying.
Yeah.
And that's when you get together and the relationship doesn't work.
Yeah, because you're playing a character.
Inherent mismatch. And it works exactly the same the other way, right?
Yeah.
So the girl who's you know, tottering about on high heels maybe, with her hair up, might attract a certain dude, but she's not that
type of girl.
That's not her.
Yeah. And
he's not him, you know, so
so it just creates a load of characters, but none of them actually match together because no one's being genuine.
Everyone's portraying. I mean, you may argue that, you know, everyone goes out on a Friday night dressed to the nines, and that actually relationships are built on the second date when people do just sit down in a local and talk about the things that they're into, and that's when it works or it doesn't. But I think, you know, in general, it is important to portray the person that you are, and like listen and look out for people who are doing the same thing, who seem genuine. Harry. I think that's the thing. Like,
because you won't have any there'll be no longevity to a relationship where you're not actually in it. It's someone else speaking for you, wearing a mouthpiece of. It's like what we said earlier in terms of what I'd put on the podcast. I feel like a lot more people are attracted to what you actually want to say compared to what you think people want to hear. And it's like people will be a lot more attracted to what you want to be compared to what you think people will want you to be, kind of thing, if that makes sense. But I think, once again, if like you see like a 19-year-old, 18 or 17-year-old, whatever, who's a boy who finds himself isolated, will probably hear things like be funny and be grounded and things like that, and they'll think, and this isn't me, but just because I remember having this attitude, but it was, what is he talking about? He doesn't understand. He has no idea. But I think people get so fixated on things. Like, I feel like the thing that's a big issue in terms of this, like, kind of, I'd say giving up kind of mentality is like, well, what can you do from there? There's no space to build on anything besides complain, and not even complain, just like, kind of just bathe in this sorrow of like, woe is me. And I feel like, of course, people might be in advantages and things like that, but I think the main thing is playing your own cards right. Get the hand that you've got and try and make the best possible outcome that you can. Because giving up and thinking they'll never like me, or he'll never like me, or I'll never be good enough, I think that's such a sad way to live. Because I've definitely thought before where, oh, I need to do all of these things, then maybe this might happen or this might happen. And I think that's the complete wrong attitude to go at it with. Because I feel like, once again, as you said, you might get everything you want from acting a different way to how you currently act. You might get a flourishing social circle. You might get you might get a relationship, you might get a job, you might get whatever, but I believe that you won't actually be fulfilled until you start fulfilling what the real you actually wants. And I feel like you might think that that's what the people want, but when you're on your own and you're not in this social circle and you think they don't actually like me, they like what I'm portraying, I feel like that's such a more of a negative headspace to be in than being at the start and thinking, how can I be my true self and try and build the life that I want.
Here's what's interesting, right? It's the length of time that you've got, is long, and sometimes, like we were saying about addictions or exercise and stuff, things take time. I think it's tragic to hear, and we've always known that people do give up. It's tragic to hear, because I think if what you do is you decide what you enjoy, you pursue doing that like independently as a single young person, and then as a sort of side shoot of that, what may then happen is you may then meet somebody. You got to kind of realise that whilst you're pursuing the stuff that you enjoy, that may then take some, I guess what I'm saying is, it's no hardship, is it, to wait 5 years to meet someone who's perfect for you, if you're spending those 5 years enjoying yourself, doing what you love to do, finding what you love to do by doing lots of different things. It's a case of, if the end goal is to meet someone, the first step on that journey is not to meet someone. The first step on that journey is to find yourself and to determine who you are and to begin to enjoy your life. And then that piece of meeting someone can only come, sometimes people meet young and they grow together, and that is wonderful and it works, right? But that's kind of a unicorn thing that I don't think you should gamble on. I think what you got to do is determine yourself, do some stuff, experiment, find what you enjoy, and then, life is so long. My sister was telling me about two people aged 61 and 62 getting together because she introduced them to one another the other day, and you think, bloody hell, I'm an old person, but that's 15 years older than I am, So it's a long life. People mustn't give up.
I think
early.
I think it's such a weird environment to be in terms of now, because I think a lot of these pessimistic views and mindsets have definitely come from the isolation that we got from
COVID.
The COVID and the lockdowns and things like that, because you're spending so much time in your own head. Yeah. You've lost, well, for me, I lost a huge chunk of my teenage years. I think it was nearly 2 years of maybe 15, 16 to 17, 18.
Like a 2-year black hole.
Yeah, just of nothing. And that's a huge part of, like, anyone's development is the ages between 16 to 18. That's where a lot of the things were meant to happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I feel like now, I don't know, it's such a weird landscape online, because everyone's looking for a quick fix, there's so many. It's such a complex thing to speak about, because sometimes you kind of immerse yourself in these online philosophies and things like that you don't even know what to think anymore. And it's not even that you don't know what to think, but it's like you feel like you should be thinking a certain way, but because you spend so much time listening to other people instead of listening to yourself, then when you start speaking, I started noticing this a lot. I'd be in conversations and I'd be quoting people, but I wouldn't actually be giving my own opinion on it. But I wouldn't have an opinion on it because I didn't spend the time to be introspective enough.
Well, received opinions are very often what we all come out with. It's an interesting thing, this spending time on your own, listening to no one else, not watching stuff and doing your own thoughts. I think is very, very important for your spiritual well-being. It's sort of self-determination, isn't it? You've got to give yourself time to... I think with all of these inputs on the internet, I think going to the source material, if someone's talking about philosophy or religion, going to the source material, getting some more diverse information, and then spending time listening, almost playing it back in your own mind and thinking it through, I think it's all very important to the way that you then choose to actualize with that information. If what you do is take information in and then live like that, I heard this, I'm doing it, I think that is potentially dangerous. I think what we all should do is continue learning, continue to take information in, and have a self-determination about what seems to make sense. What do I actually feel comfortable with? What of these things, when I tell other people, do they react to and go, that sounds good? What of these things, when I tell other people, do they look at me like I'm a lunatic?
Yeah.
And sometimes that's not a good measure, but you've got to give things time, let them marinate, do some more reading, and not, again, part of it is recognizing how long the journey is. You can't sometimes. I know that there's tons of people who throw 12 sixes in a row and seem therefore to compress their life journey and be like, bam, I'm 26 and I've made it. But actually, for most people on Earth, it just doesn't work like that. It's just a much longer journey. But it's fine. It's an enjoyable journey.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the challenge is to pace yourself along that journey and be comfortable that you're not, that there may be weeks, months, years where it doesn't feel like it moves on.
Yeah.
But often it's building blocks that are being put in place. Your knowledge is increasing, your social circle's increasing, your reading has expanded.
Yeah.
Your fitness has gone up, and so there are, you only get married once, right?
Yeah.
But that feels like it's a big thing. But of course it's not. It's a culmination of loads of small events that take you to that point in your life. Whether it's marriage or whatever it is, the sort of those big life events, then they're not it. They're just the marker bit.
Yeah.
The big life events are just
a chapter.
Yeah, just the daily event of getting up, not being a dickhead, going to bed, thanking whoever, yourself, for the fact that the day wasn't shit and you weren't a dickhead.
Yeah.
That very often that's good enough for a day.
I think
you got to take it sometimes.
I think I just kind of had a realisation where, I don't know if you've heard, but I've spoken a lot to Curtis about this, a friend of both of ours, but about decision making. And I don't know if this is, I don't know if it's the main reason, but because I've been listening to a lot of people, different backgrounds, different political ideologies, different philosophies on life, they give you these recommendations on how to live your life. And I feel like because I've been maybe listening to these people from maybe the age of 15, 16 up to 19, so that's a solid 3 to 4 years of information that I've gained, I've realised that may be why I struggle. That might be why I struggle with making decisions, because I've never actually had to make a decision for myself. I've just been taking the prescriptions of what these influencers, role models, celebrities, whatever, have been giving me. And I think that's a very weird place to be in, because when you actually need to make your own decision on your own, you kind of feel a bit overwhelmed and lost. It's especially making huge life decisions, because you're just expecting for someone to come in and swoop in and tell you. And I feel like you need to develop that decision making, and of course that starts small. But even the other day I was trying to, pick a meal deal out. I had maybe standing there looking at the sandwiches for maybe 10-15 minutes. But I think that's a key thing for people to develop is decision making. But you need to do that through introspectiveness and self-reflection instead of constantly being involved with the information that you get off gurus online. Another thing there as well is when you're talking about the journey and it's a lot longer than you think, I think that's very hard to kind of grasp. And because you'll see, like, you go on TikTok for 5 minutes, even if you've never used the app before, and you'll scroll you'll scroll and you'll see some 16-year-old who's made £400,000 off selling plushy toys from AliExpress or someplace like that, and you'll think, I'm working in my job, doing whatever, and this 16-year-old has just made 400 grand, and now Matt's telling me I've got to wait 40 years before I become successful or whatever. And I feel like because there's such a huge culture nowadays of just instant gratification of everything coming to you quickly, that like people expect it to come to them straight away, but it's like,
well,
it's a hard truth to. It's kind of hard. It's hard to digest, but it's like that's what people need to hear. That's what, because if you rush it, then it won't be genuine.
Well, here's it's very interesting actually, because I do watch reels and stuff, and one of the phenomena on there, I mentioned rolling 12/6s. One of the things that is often on those is the impossible trick shots, right?
Yeah.
And that is like you're selling plushies off AliExpress.
Yeah.
That is one person getting lucky for every 100,000 attempts. Like, I started a t-shirt company when I was your age, and I did one run of t-shirts. I got them into a couple of shops, and then just sort of gave up on it because it was too hard and it wasn't ever going to make me rich. I was pleased I tried it, but someone else started a t-shirt company, and it's like
Adidas or Nike.
Yeah,
or something
exactly.
Like that.
They had different look, but I think it's important to know that a lot of that stuff's look. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't buy a crate of fluffy toys and try and flog them on your own Squarespace site, powered by Shopify. You should give that a go, but it's okay if it doesn't turn out to be a success because you learn something from it. I think that's a
key thing as well, just action.
Yeah, action is key. So at my place of work, we have a bit of a mantra about having a bias towards action, because we're all kind of analytical thinkers, but you have to roll the dice to find out which way they're going to come up.
Yeah.
And if you want to know whether you're going to be successful at doing a t-shirt company, the only way to find out is to do a t-shirt company.
Yeah.
You can't think around it. If you want to know what the sandwiches are going to taste like, you got to buy them.
Yeah.
And if you're hungry, you just got to buy any flipping sandwich right now.
Yeah.
And move on. It's weird because I know I said you got to take things slow, but what I mean is that the entire journey is very long.
Yeah.
And you have opportunity to take wrong turns.
Yeah.
It is like a labyrinth or a maze sometimes, and there are frustrating blind alleys in there, but it's fine to take them. It's okay. It's all good. It only feels like a maze when you stopped and are staring at the walls.
Yeah.
Whilst you keep moving, turn around, take a few steps, that's when you feel free and like you've got agency, and the world's your lobster.
Yeah. I was watching a YouTube video last night by a YouTuber called Gerbert Johnson, and he was making a video on why people are struggling to grow up these days, and he was speaking about the aspect of time and about how time gets faster as you get older.
It does. Because
your brain doesn't need to learn about new experiences. Like, think about, it's hard to pinpoint one specific day at work unless something huge happened. And that's the thing. But I think I think a key point there is to try new experiences, to feel like you're living and not just kind of on autopilot going through life, because that's how life flashes by very quickly because you're not trying anything new.
He is right about that. There's another reason why it feels like it goes faster, and that is because as a proportion of a 20-year-old's life, a year is 5%.
Yeah.
As a portion of my life, a year is less than 2.5%.
Yeah.
And it's very different, therefore, very, very different. But yeah, for sure, doing more things, doing different things,
but
makes it feel like you are alive.
Yeah, I think that relates well to the point that you were making though, because life is long. I believe life is long if you use it right, but also just because life is long, that doesn't mean you should let days pass you by that you can just go idle by. That even relates to going back and links back to the hangover point. But it's like you need to try things to see if they're going to work out. And yeah, life is long, but that doesn't mean not to try anything and wait, because once again, there'll never be a perfect time. There'll never be a perfect time for a business. There'll never be a perfect time for fitness. There'll never be a perfect time for anything. But it's just about, dipping your toes in and getting started. That's all. That's how it goes. Even with this podcast, like this is the first podcast, the first episode, and this was started just off, just a 2-minute chat of very long 2-minute chat, but it's why don't we just record something, and this is how it happens. Planning everything out, because I struggle with that sometimes, trying to plan everything out and execute it perfectly. A lot of the time you just end up in analysis paralysis. A great plan that isn't executed is a lot worse than a good plan that is.
The first casualty of something is something. I want to get the right quote for that.
But I think the key thing, just so far, is that's there is play your cards, the cards that you dealt. Try and make the best outcome possible with the options and cards that you've been given, but don't box yourself in and give up because you think that you have to either give into an identity that's given to you by your friends of, he's the guy who has he drinks the most on the Friday night, so if I change that, then I'm not going to be liked. Sometimes you need to sacrifice those types of things. Being known as the guy who's reserved, he's the introverted guy, and then you want to start working on your social skills. Like, don't always give in to past identities that have been given to you just for the sake of feeling acceptance, because sometimes you need to grow. Some people might laugh at you for trying to start a business. Some people might laugh at you for not drinking, picking up fitness when you're 400 pounds. But that's the start of everything. You'll face friction at the start, but what are you going to do? You're not going to live your life because you're worried about what 5 people might think of you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard to get past that. Of course, it's easier said than done, especially if you feel like the outcome of you committing to a new lifestyle is isolation. But are you going to live your life on other people's terms or your own?
Yeah, true. And also, it's never isolation, right? All it often means is you ain't going to see those lot as much.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you ain't going to see them again. And very often there's someone else who, if you think about it, you can probably rope them into the new thing. I'm not going to do that this Friday. I'm going to do this. Does anyone want to do this? Oh yeah. After everyone, one person will say, I wouldn't mind doing that this Friday. Great. Should we end it on a quote?
Yeah, for sure.
Helmuth von Moltke, who was a Prussian military commander. This was the quote I was searching for. It's very often misquoted and mucked about with, but it's no plan of operations reaches with any certainty beyond the first encounter with the enemy's main force.
Can you break that down for me or repeat?
It just means you might have a plan, but once you start to execute on it, then it won't go to plan.
Yeah.
So you actually need to have a strategy so that as soon as reality kicks in, you can deal with the reality. You
Yeah.
know, it's basically a quote that says, "There's no point over planning stuff."
Yeah.
Because when you finally turn up,
Things won't go perfectly.
things won't go
They never
perfectly. Yeah, exactly. They'll go perfectly, but they'll go differently than you expected.